Have you ever wondered how far one photograph can take you into the unknown? I never thought a simple camera could unravel the threads of destiny, but that's exactly what happened to me one rainy afternoon in the heart of Brooklyn. The streets of Williamsburg glistened under a thick veil of clouds, and the air was heavy with the smell of damp asphalt. I was just a struggling photographer trying to capture the soul of my city, but what I stumbled upon was far more haunting than any art I'd ever tried to create. As I wandered through the bustling streets, my old camera slung tightly around my neck, I felt a strange energy pulling me towards an alleyway I had never noticed before. It was shrouded in shadows, the kind that seemed to whisper secrets. I hesitated for a moment, my heart racing with a mix of trepidation and curiosity. That's when I saw it. A small, dimly lit shop with a flickering sign that read, "Curiosities." It felt like a portal to another world. I pushed the door open, and the bell above tinkled like a warning. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of aged wood and something else, something unsettling. Shelves were cluttered with odd trinkets and faded photographs, but what caught my eye was an old camera sitting on the counter. The shopkeeper, a wiry man with silver hair and knowing eyes, smiled at me as if he had been expecting my arrival. "This one's special," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It reveals the future of whoever you photograph." I laughed nervously, brushing off his words as mere salesmanship. But something compelled me to purchase the camera, as if it were beckoning me to uncover the mysteries it held. I took it home, my mind swirling with excitement and disbelief. That evening, I decided to test it out with my best friend, Sarah. We set up a makeshift studio in my cramped apartment on 4th Street, the walls adorned with our past adventures captured in frames. As I clicked the shutter, the flash illuminated her face, and I felt a chill race down my spine. The photo developed slowly, revealing not just Sarah's smile but something lurking in the background. A shadowed figure, indistinct yet menacing. "What the hell is that?" I whispered, my heart pounding. Sarah leaned in, her expression shifting from amusement to unease. "It must be a trick of the light," she suggested, but deep down, I sensed it was more than that. The first signs of conflict crept in when Sarah's laughter faded, replaced by a tense silence. "You should burn the photo," she said, her voice trembling. "It feels wrong." But I couldn't. I was entranced, captivated by the camera's strange allure. As I looked around my apartment, memories flooded back. My childhood in a small town in New Jersey, where I had always felt like an outsider, always yearning for a connection. I had buried those feelings deep within, but now they resurfaced, clawing at my heart. The camera had somehow awakened a part of me I thought was long gone. Each click felt like a question posed to the universe, and I was terrified yet exhilarated by the answers it might reveal. But as night fell, that thrill morphed into dread. Shadows danced across the walls, and the air grew heavy with a sense of impending doom. Outside, the streets of Brooklyn remained oblivious, but I could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. Something inexplicable was about to happen, and I was powerless to stop it. As the night cloaked Brooklyn in darkness, I couldn't shake the feeling that the photograph I had taken was a harbinger of something sinister. I glanced at Sarah, who sat across from me, her previous bravado replaced by an anxious pallor. "I think I need to get rid of that picture," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But my fingers lingered over the print, entranced by the shadow lurking behind her, as if it were a part of a story waiting to unfold. "Just one more shot," I insisted, caught in a web of curiosity and fear. "I need to know what this camera can do." But Sarah shook her head, her eyes wide with concern. "It feels wrong, Noah." What if it's not just a trick of the light? What if it's something more? Her words hung in the air like an unspoken warning. Before I could respond, the door swung open and in walked Ethan, my childhood friend, a tornado of energy and charm. He was the kind of person who lit up a room, but tonight he seemed oblivious to the tension that had settled between me and Sarah. "What's going on?" he asked, glancing between us. "You two look like you've seen a ghost." "Just some weird stuff with this new camera," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. But deep down, I knew it was more than just a camera. It was a gateway to something I couldn't fully comprehend. Ethan leaned over, intrigued. "Let me see," he said, peering at the photograph. "Whoa, what's that?" He pointed at the shadow, and my heart raced. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling a surge of frustration. "But whatever it is, it feels like it's watching us." Ethan's brows furrowed in concern, and I could see the gears turning in his head. "Maybe you should try taking another photo, see if it happens again." As I picked up the camera, I felt a pulse of energy flow through me, the anticipation mingling with dread. I aimed it at Ethan, hoping to capture something more, but as I clicked the shutter, the flash erupted, illuminating the room in blinding white. When the image developed, I felt my stomach drop. The shadow had intensified, now taking on a more defined shape, its features obscured, yet undeniably present. Dark, menacing, and watching us. "What the hell?" Ethan exclaimed, stepping back. "This is getting creepy, Noah." I didn't know how to explain it, how to articulate the rising fear in my chest. The camera felt like a curse, yet I couldn't let it go. It had awakened something in me, a hunger for truth, for connection. But now it felt like a Pandora's box I had foolishly opened. "Maybe we should just get rid of it," Sarah suggested again, her voice shaking. "I don't want any part of this." I looked at her, and the conflict within me deepened. I didn't want to let go of this opportunity, this chance to uncover the mysteries of my own past. But at what cost? With every click of the shutter, I could feel the shadows closing in. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a chill swept through the room. I glanced at Sarah, who had turned pale, her eyes wide with terror. "I think we need to leave," she said, her voice trembling. Just then, the shopkeeper's words echoed in my mind. "It reveals the future of whoever you photograph." What future awaited us if we continued down this path? I felt a swell of guilt for dragging my friends into this. "Maybe you're right," I conceded, but a part of me still resisted. "Let's just take one more photo," I proposed, the words spilling out before I could stop myself. "We need to know if it's just a coincidence." Ethan and Sarah exchanged uneasy glances, but I could see the spark of curiosity igniting within them, too. They were drawn into the mystery just as I was. As I raised the camera to capture the moment, the air crackled with tension, and I knew we were on the brink of something dark and profound. The choice was no longer just mine, it was ours, and whatever lay ahead would bind us together or tear us apart. As I steadied the camera, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. The shadows flickered at the edges of my vision as if they were alive, writhing, and hungry. I glanced at Ethan and Sarah, their faces a mix of intrigue and fear, and I knew I was dragging them into something far darker than any of us had anticipated. "Okay, on 3, I said, forcing a smile to mask my unease. 1, 2. But before I could say 3, the camera let out a strange whirring noise, one that sounded like a warning. I hesitated, and for a brief moment I felt the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. "Maybe we should stop," Sarah started, but the words died in her throat as my finger pressed the shutter. The flash exploded, a blinding light that swallowed the room. when the image developed, my heart sank. The shadow was no longer just a dark shape. It had morphed into a figure that resembled me, but with an expression twisted in anguish. I was staring into my own face, yet it was a reflection warped by fear and despair. "What the hell is this?" I gasped, my breath hitching in my throat. Ethan leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "Noah, that looks like you, but why do you look so haunted?" I finished, feeling a chill creep down my spine. This doesn't make any sense. My mind spiraled, grappling with the implications. It was as if the camera was peeling back layers of my psyche, exposing a trauma I had buried deep. Then, like a jolt of electricity, a memory crashed over me. A night when I was 10. A storm raging outside, and a scream piercing through the walls of our old apartment. I had run to my parents' room only to find them fighting, my mother's face twisted in fear, my father's rage a tangible force. I had watched from the shadows, helpless and terrified. "I never told you guys," I started, my voice shaking. "But that night, I saw something in the darkness. Something that wasn't just a trick of the light." "Are you saying that this is connected?" Sarah asked, her eyes widening. "What if the camera is showing you your past?" I felt the world tilt beneath me, the weight of my memories crashing down like waves. What if it's not just my past? What if it's something worse? Something that's been waiting for me to unlock it? Ethan's expression shifted from concern to determination. "We have to figure this out, Noah. We can't let it control us." But just as I opened my mouth to respond, the lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness. I felt a hand grip my arm and panic surged through me. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. In the pitch-black room, I could hear an unsettling sound, like breathing, or maybe a whisper, slithering through the silence. "It knows we're here," I breathed, my heart pounding. And in that moment I realized we were no longer just observers in this twisted narrative. We were part of it, entwined in a fate that seemed to stretch far beyond our understanding. The shadows deepened, and I could feel something ancient and malevolent stirring, awakening to our presence. As the darkness pressed in, I knew we had crossed a threshold, and there would be no turning back. With a sudden resolve, I reached for the camera again, my fingers trembling. I had to confront this darkness, even if it meant unearthing secrets I wasn't ready to face. "Let's go deeper," I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "We need to understand what we're dealing with." As I prepared to capture the next moment, I felt the weight of my past and the chilling reality of the present collide. Whatever lay ahead, it would demand everything from us. Our courage, our trust in each other, and perhaps even our very sanity. As I steadied my resolve, the camera felt like an anchor in my trembling hands. I could hear the whispers now, clearer, more insistent. They seemed to wrap around us, tugging at my mind, urging me to remember more, to dig deeper. I had to confront whatever this was, whatever it had awakened within me. "Are you sure about this?" Ethan's voice broke through the haze of my thoughts, laced with a concern that felt oddly comforting. "Yes," I replied, my heart racing. "I need to know." I turned to Sarah, who stood beside Ethan, her eyes wide with both fear and determination. "We all need to know what's happening." The shadows danced along the walls, alive and hungry. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my past pressing down on me. I had avoided this for too long, but the camera, this cursed device, was forcing my hand. With a nod, I raised the camera to my eye and captured the darkness once more. The flash burst forth, illuminating the room for a fleeting moment. As the image developed, my breath hitched in my throat. This time, the figure was clearer, but now it included Ethan and Sarah, their faces distorted with fear, a mirror of my own anguish. "What is happening?" Sarah gasped, taking a step back. "Why are we in this?" I felt the ground shift beneath us, the air thickening with an oppressive force. "It's showing us what we're afraid of," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I glanced at Ethan, searching for a flicker of understanding. "It's revealing our darkest fears, our hidden truths." But before he could respond, the shadows surged forward, coalescing into a swirling mass at the center of the room. I could see faces within the darkness, twisted and tormented, their mouths moving in silent screams. I felt the pull of something ancient, something that wanted to consume us. "Back away," Ethan shouted, pushing Sarah behind him. The protective instinct in his eyes was fierce, but I felt rooted to the spot, mesmerized by the dark spectacle. "No, we can't just run," I yelled, feeling the weight of the shadows pressing into my chest. "We have to face it." Suddenly, the whispers escalated into a cacophony, each voice vying for dominance. "You belong to us," one hissed, a sharp, cold tone that sent shivers down my spine. I felt something clawing at the edges of my mind, a fear that threatened to overwhelm me. "Don't listen to it." Sarah's voice broke through, fierce and unwavering. She stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the swirling void. "It feeds on doubt and fear. We have to stay strong." Her words ignited a flame within me, igniting my resolve. I turned back to the camera, determined to capture the truth behind this nightmare. "Together," I urged, "we can face this." As I pressed the shutter once more, the air crackled with energy, and the shadows recoiled, a fleeting moment of hesitation. I could feel Ethan and Sarah's presence beside me, their strength grounding me. We were no longer just subjects of this horror, we were united against it. But as the flash illuminated the room, I felt a sudden shift. A dark presence surged toward me, and in that instant I realized the choice I had made. The camera wasn't just documenting our fears, it was a key, unlocking something that had waited too long to be unleashed. As the light faded, I understood the price of this confrontation would be far greater than I had ever imagined. In that moment, I braced myself for the storm that was about to break, knowing that whatever lay ahead would change everything. As the light from the camera flash faded, the shadows recoiled, revealing a twisted scene that felt like a nightmare made real. I braced myself for impact, but instead of a physical blow, I felt an overwhelming rush of memories, disjointed and chaotic, like a floodgate had burst. Faces from my past, long buried and forgotten, surged forth, filling my mind with their haunting presence. Ethan staggered back, clutching his head as if trying to contain the chaos within. I could see the color drain from his face, and I realized that the confrontation had affected him too. "What did we unleash?" he gasped, his voice strained. Sarah, still standing beside me, looked pale but resolute. "We faced it, but it's not over," she said, her eyes darting around the room, scanning for signs of the darkness that had just threatened to consume us. "It's still here lurking." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the room, and the floor beneath us trembled. I stumbled, catching myself against the wall, my breath coming in short gasps. The shadows seemed to pulse, as if they were alive, responding to our fear. I realized we hadn't just confronted our fears, we had awakened something far more sinister. "The camera," I said, panic creeping into my voice. "It's still connected to whatever this is. We need to destroy it." Ethan shook his head, breathing heavily. "What if it's the only way to keep it at bay? What if we can control it?" His eyes were wild, still flickering with the remnants of terror. "No, we can't play with fire," I insisted, feeling the weight of the camera in my hands, its cold metal a reminder of the darkness we had faced. "It has to end here." As I raised the camera to smash it against the floor, a figure emerged from the shadows, an echo of a childhood friend I had lost long ago. "You must remember," it whispered, just as ethereal as the shadows surrounding us. "Your past is the key." A surge of pain shot through my heart, and I faltered. The weight of loss surged within me, pulling me into a vortex of sorrow. I could feel Ethan's and Sarah's presence behind me, anchoring me, but the memory was strong. "We can't let it take us," I whispered. With a newfound determination, I lowered the camera and turned to face the swirling shadows. "We're not afraid anymore," I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. The shadows hesitated, and for a moment I felt their power wane. But as the darkness receded, I knew the battle was far from over. The camera still held secrets, and the figure that had emerged was a reminder that our pasts were intertwined with this phenomenon. Ethan looked at me, his expression a mixture of fear and understanding. "We'll figure this out, won't we?" he asked, his voice shaky but hopeful. "Yes," I replied, though uncertainty gnawed at my insides. "But we need to confront our pasts first." As we stepped back from the remnants of our confrontation, I noticed Sarah clutching her arm, where a shadow had left its mark, a bruise forming in the shape of a hand. "What if it comes back?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "We'll be ready," I assured her, though doubt lingered in my mind. There were still shadows left to face, unexplained elements that whispered of deeper mysteries. As we moved toward the exit, I felt a chill run down my spine, and glancing back at the remnants of the darkness, I knew we had merely scratched the surface. The camera was still in my hands, a ticking time bomb of revelations and horrors yet to come. And as we stepped into the light, the shadows whispered again, echoing in my mind, "This is just the beginning." As we stepped into the light, I felt a bittersweet tug at my heart. The memories that had flooded my mind were not just echoes of pain, they were reminders of laughter, warmth, and moments that defined who I had become. I glanced at Ethan and Sarah, their faces reflecting a mix of fear and resolve, and I realized that we were not just fighting the shadows of our past. We were also uncovering the pieces of ourselves that we had lost along the way. The camera, still heavy in my grip, was a reminder of the bittersweet nature of memory. It was a vessel that captured not just the darkness, but also the light, the moments that made us whole. As I looked back at the room where our confrontation had taken place, I felt the shadows retreating, but they were not gone. They lingered at the edges, whispering secrets that could not be unlearned. "Do you remember the summer we spent at the lake?" I asked Ethan, nostalgia flooding my voice. "We used to tell ghost stories around the campfire." He nodded, a small smile breaking through the tension. "And we were too scared to sleep in the tents." Sarah joined in, her eyes glinting with that shared memory. "We were kids then. We thought the darkness was just our imagination." I knew then that the shadows we faced were reflections of our fears, yes, but also of our innocence, of the dreams we once dared to have. As we moved away from the darkness, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Perhaps the confrontation was not just about defeating what haunted us, but about embracing the memories that shaped us. As we stepped into the unknown, I could still hear the echoes of laughter mingling with the whispers of the shadows. "This isn't over," I murmured to myself, but a part of me was hopeful. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure, and leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.